Fake news. Welcome back to Truth Hurts, where we expose corrupt politicians and lying corporate media. I'm Jake Duesenberg, your host, broadcasting live from Roseville, Minnesota, in the belly of the beast in the liberal zombie apocalypse of Minneapolis and St. Paul, where, by the way, if you leave the metro area, it becomes Trump country rapidly quick. People do not like Tim Walz outside of the metro area. It's just this big, 3 million plus area that thinks very different than the rest of Minnesota and the rest of the United States of America. Joining me, as always, on this show, Mega Jesse. What are we going to talk about today?
Oh, yeah, we got a lot of important things to get into. We're going to explain who this new Trump assassin is, all of the details, everything that we could find on him, some of the tweets, some of the craziness that he's put out there.
What's his name?
I'd say Routh. Ryan Routh.
Okay,
is how
you
I'd
say
pronounce
Routh,
the last
I'll say
name.
Ruth.
Yep. And then after that, we'll be talking with Rebecca Whiting, who is a U.S. Senate candidate, Libertarian, running against Royce White.
No, I was going to say Whitting, so she's Whiting or Whitting?
What is it, Whiting?
Whiting, like the fish.
All right, there we go. I think I'm 2 for 2 on name pronunciation so far then. We'll be talking about the ABC debate, other than the debate itself, where if you watch it, you'd see it's rigged. But it looks like we've got a little bit of evidence to prove that it was rigged. Then we'll be talking about Paul Gazelka caving to Walz. But now he's got a new book out there where he claims like he's a champion and a fighter against Walz. We'll break all of that stuff down today.
Rebecca Whiting, good to have you on the show.
Hi, I'm really happy to be here, actually.
And you're running for U.S. Senate.
Yep.
As a Libertarian Party candidate, is that correct?
Yes, I am.
Okay. I can't wait to get into that. Join us at the beginning of the show as we discuss the shooter. I'd love to hear from your Libertarian Party perspective what's going on. By the way, were you at the national convention where Trump spoke?
No, I stayed behind because our petitioning window had opened during the national convention, and so a number of us stayed behind to work on petitioning.
Petitioning to get you on the ballot? Or
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. It just happened to overlap, and priority had to be Minnesota.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Well, that's actually a very healthy, mature viewpoint on
Yeah.
politics, by the way.
Try.
Reading your comments at home, the lovely Bridget. How you doing, Bridget?
Great. We've got Tucker here. Says, good afternoon, everyone. Rodeo 55 says, good afternoon to Tucker, I guess, not to us. T-Wall for Life says, good afternoon. And yeah.
Well, I'll say hi to Rodeo 55, even if Rodeo 55 doesn't say hello to us. Running the dials, as always, Mr. Deep State himself. Dawson, how you doing, Dawson?
I'm good. I just started doing a meal prep for breakfast burritos, and I had it, and it was delicious.
That actually makes me really hungry right now.
It was. I'll bring you one. It's super tasty and tons of protein in it.
There you go.
Nice.
He's really exploring his toxic masculinity lately, so
That makes sense.
he's
I
hyped
see
up
it.
on protein and
Yeah.
testosterone. If you want to interrupt us anytime, hit that Rumble rant, and that way we have to read your comment. Otherwise, join us on the thread on Rumble, and we will have it on the screen as Bridget's being shown. We couldn't do this without our great sponsors, Alpine Cabinetry in St. Cloud, Minnesota, Warren Wessel of Keller Williams Realty. If you're buying a home, you're selling a home, give my friend Warren Wessel a call at 612-419-7453. A great real estate agent. Excuse me. Great real estate agent. Good friend. Also sings in my church choir. What else could you ask for? But he's a really good real estate agent. That's what really matters, He is conservative, so that's good. But he's a good real estate agent. And that's what you want when you're selling a home, right? Or if you're looking for a home. Now, if you're buying a home, give the good guys at John Galt Mortgage Company your business. You can go to johngaltmortgage.com, learn more about them. They're licensed in more states, it seems like, every week. Do you know about these guys, Rebecca? They're big libertarians.
No. I
They're
haven't
from Greater
heard of them
Minnesota,
before.
Andrew and Tim Chermak. Okay. You would definitely like it. John Galt Mortgage Company, right?
Yeah, right.
Isn't that good?
Yep.
All right. Give John Galt Mortgage your business, johngaltmortgage.com. All right. Let's talk about Ryan Wesley Routh. I guess we'll go with Routh. I've heard both, Ruth and Routh. 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 We're going with Routh, okay? That's what it is. It's been decided on the Truth Hurts show. This is a deranged guy. At least we can say that. Is he a CIA asset? Is he a hyper political left-wing activist who's taken violence in his hands? These are the questions a lot of people are wondering as this news unfolded Sunday night. I was coming out of the woods. I was camping, and who was it? Oh, yeah, my friend Benner, Dave Benner, who got retweeted. Do you know Dave Benner?
I do.
You do know Dave Benner. Good.
Yeah.
Just got retweeted by Elon Musk. And it was a tweet about Ron Paul, too, which is great. And centralized economic planning. Loved it. Anyhow, he's the one that broke the story to me. I was like, wait, what? And, of course, on Friday, I was chatting with someone on the phone, and I was saying, yeah, they're going to go after Trump again. And then here comes Sunday. Big shocker. But is there more to the story than just a deranged guy? Jesse's got the story. This is on actionforliberty.com. Tell us more about who Ryan Routh is.
Yeah, let's go ahead and pull that up on the screen there, Dawson. It's been confirmed by Newsweek that Routh is a registered Democrat. I know, I'm sure you're enjoying that picture there, Dawson.
I give him so much crap.
But it's been... What's that?
If you want me, I will straight up. I'll help you with stuff like this.
Will you take that help, Jesse?
Yeah, I'll take that.
Do you see what Rebecca? You're a neutral party here. We keep giving him crap because he doesn't know how to do graphics.
I really don't think it looks that bad.
It's awful. It's so.
I really don't think it looks that bad.
What do you think? It's very stretched.
It's a little stretched.
I mean, it's better than what I could do, honestly.
Hey,
so you're a step ahead of me. Yeah.
Thank you. I think, it just stretches out a little bit. It's not
All right.
that
Well, let's
bad,
get to the content
anyway,
of your story.
So, Trump put out a statement. He said, quote, "I would like to thank everyone for your concerns and well wishes. It was certainly an interesting day. Most importantly, I want to thank the U.S. Secret Service, Sheriff Rick Bradshaw and his office, and the dedicated patriots and all law enforcement for the incredible job done today at Trump International in keeping me, the 45th President of the United States, and the Republican nominee for the upcoming presidential election safe. The job was absolutely outstanding. I am very proud to be an American." So that was his initial response to that. And, of course, the Democrats put out a couple of Weasley responses saying of course, violence is unacceptable in our country, but also Trump is dangerous and he's a fascist. So
and he's the biggest threat to democracy.
Right.
But don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Yep.
Nothing needs to be done.
Essentially what happened here, the guy was on this property for over 12 hours. He was lining up there with his rifle. He fled once he was located. There were shots fired at him. He fled. A individual was able to give a description of him and the vehicle he was in. He was stopped 37 miles later, and federal gun charges have been filed against him. A clip of the body cam footage of the arrest has been released. It's about 30 seconds long. It seems like that's the only footage that's out there now.
Hey, before we get into who he is and what you know at this point, just out of... So this is interesting. It just came out this morning. He was there for 12 hours. He arrived on scene. Do we have the timeline? Will you pull up the timeline here, Dawson? I think it's the A2. This is on Fox News, their timeline, and it shows that he was actually there in these bushes on the outskirts of this golf course, Trump golf course, at 1:59 a.m. I don't know if that's video footage or something they found. So as Jesse just said, 12 hours he waited in this position. Okay, now we went through and we looked at the image. He was within about 400 or 500 yards from Trump before they saw this muzzle, this rifle going through the chain link fence, and then apparently they're shooting at him. I just can't even in my head fathom what that looked like. Someone saw a rifle pointing through the fence, and what did they shoot from, with a handgun from 50 yards away? And it sounds like so sloppy. That's what it sounds like, right?
Yeah.
So I can't even fathom it. But what it looked like was, I think he was putting, and then the next hole would have came right by the guy. And so the idea that he would have shot at 400 to 500 yards, and I don't think there was a scope on the AK-47. It seems like he probably wouldn't hit Trump, right? However, it would probably have been really close had they.
I heard he did have a scope.
Did he have a scope?
That's what I heard.
We did have an image. See, I can't see from this image. Yeah. Even if he had a scope, 400 to 500 yards is a far shot.
Yeah.
Right. That's a tough shot for most people.
Yep.
So anyhow, what I found interesting, I think this is still correct. Trump, this wasn't on his official schedule for the day.
Right.
That he was going to be golfing.
Yep, it wasn't reported publicly, that it wasn't on his calendar, it wasn't said, so you do have to wonder how this Ryan Routh was able to get this information, where he got a hold of it, and in this particular case, this Ryan Routh is an obvious patient for Trump derangement syndrome, especially when it came to Russiagate, which the Democrats are still trying to revive with the Ukrainian war. They want to use that as an effort to guide the people into hating Russia again, guiding us into a new Red Scare. And so a lot of people were looking to research this Ryan Routh and hopefully find as much information on him as they could. We were hoping that, especially because there's a new era of Twitter now that it's X, now that it's Elon Musk, that Elon Musk was going to do things for free speech. Well, Elon Musk took to Twitter and he removed Ryan Routh's Twitter account. So we can check that out there. The account is suspended. I think that it would have best served the public, it would have best served our people if we are able to independently research this Ryan Routh for ourselves. When his account is taken down like this, we're stuck to leave to the, we're stuck trusting the words of people before us who either were able to get the screenshots there or, it just allows things to be unconfirmed because we're not able to see the account for itself. So, of course, he's an evil guy who tried to kill Trump, but if you leave that profile up in the intermediary, it allows we the people to become informed citizens on this issue.
Dawson, can you steel man this argument here? Like, why would you get rid of his account or suspend it so we can't see it?
So clearly it's just a kind of way.
It's to discourage violence, right? I'm sure that they take it down so that others don't, so others can't become a martyr and have their posts highlighted like that.
The way that it stands out to me is because what are the odds that Elon himself is going and deleting the account? Super freaking low. If he's going and saying, "Hey, get rid of this person's account," that would make more sense. It seems to me like he's trying to cover up something. But that's just
I would imagine more he's doing this in coordination with the FBI, with the government, that the government had maybe requested this of him and he was willing to comply. I'm sure that it wasn't Elon's idea, like you're saying, Dawson, that it probably wasn't his idea to take this down, but I'm sure that he was asked to comply with the government. Otherwise,
but if the government came out to Elon Musk and said, "We need you to delete this," Musk would be the first person to be like, "No, screw you, I'm keeping it up."
Sometimes, yeah, but maybe, it seems like he's willing to comply. Sometimes he says whenever there's a violation of the law, he would say that, this guy violated the law by trying to assassinate the president. It'd be interesting to see the argument. But, I would rather this information continue to be up so that we can research this for ourselves because there's a lot of things out there. We can't we're still trying to figure out, is this guy a rogue, deranged individual who did this on his own? Or was there higher level coordination in place? Because some reporting indicates that he was a recruiter for the International Legion of Defense of Ukraine. And Zelensky and the Legion dismissed these claims. But, there's reporting out there. He sent a bunch of emails. He had an email address associated with the International Legion of Defense recruiting people for the Ukrainian war. He was in a propaganda video for the Azov Battalion, which is Ukraine's National Guard. He was in an interview discussing recruiting Afghanis for Ukraine and how the Ukrainians would get all upset at him, but he'd say, "Let's bring in the Afghanis. We need to win the war." And then he even wrote a book that encouraged the assassination of Trump. And I say in here, for full transparency, the failed assassin does appear to have voted for Trump in 2016, but was subsequently brainwashed.
Where did you get that from?
From his tweets. He even says in one of his tweets that he voted for Trump in 2016.
And this is just because people screen captured it.
Right.
And so,
Yeah.
that's the scary thing is that get faked.
Right, exactly. And that's the problem, too, with the Twitter, with the profile not up. The fake tweets will be out there, and it will be very hard for people to determine what's real and what's not.
Well, we initially got duped, and it was changed before publication of this article, but that he had a bio that said, LGBTQ plus, right. And it's got all the flags, and it's like, and I remember us discussing it, I'm like, that seems too good to be true, whatever that's supposed to mean.
Yeah.
Oh, it's still in the article?
I thought I took it out. I'll take it out.
Yeah.
But
so it's like that is. I remember speaking of Dave Benner. So Benner's idea was, well, just wait until we find out how this guy was actually, a Republican or all that kind of stuff. It's because they don't want the narrative to be that he was a leftist. I don't know if we ever know the truth of this stuff because there's so much fake stuff on both sides. So that's why I'm suspicious. Oh, you voted for Trump in 2016. Well, that could be true. Although, probably Liz Cheney did too. Maybe. Did she? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe not on that
did.
one. But I'm sure there's some good examples. Well, Pence did, right?
Yeah, right, exactly.
So, hey, by the way, did Pence come out and say he's not voting for Trump? Or
I don't think he said anything like that yet.
Okay, someone thought he did.
He's been pretty quiet.
That's what I thought.
But, so in this book that this guy, Ryan Routh, wrote, he says that it would be acceptable for Iran to assassinate Trump or Trump voters, including himself, because of the U.S.'s withdrawal from the Iran nuclear agreement. But that's a little confusing of a narrative, because if Ryan Routh was, supportive of the Iran nuclear agreement, why would he have voted for Trump in 2016? Because Trump was saying he was going to tear up the deal in 2015. Trump was saying that during the primary election. So maybe this guy just fell for propaganda after the fact, and it seems his views were convoluted, not uniform, not consistent or principled, because he at one point was on Twitter asking Nikki Haley and Vivek Ramaswamy to join forces for a unity ticket against Trump. Despite this guy being a big-time Ukraine guy, Vivek Ramaswamy is even further anti-Ukraine war than Donald Trump is. So it doesn't make any kind of sense at all. And let's go back to the article, Dawson, just so we can scan through some of these pictures here. I was able to find his LinkedIn bio, as well as a picture of what his truck was that has
Scroll
a
up.
Biden-Harris
Scroll up,
sticker
Dustin.
on it. Yeah, scroll up. So
Keep going. Keep going up.
and that's been confirmed too. I've seen multiple pictures in front of his house that shows that he had a Biden-Harris sticker on there. That is his LinkedIn profile. Go and scroll down. He had posts where he says,
This one's not true, just so people know.
yeah, that one I'm going to take down there.
We do believe this is inaccurate. This was fake news.
Yep. Keep scrolling there, because he says, at Hillary Clinton, why are you not running with Joe Biden? Come on, you are not my favorite, but we all must do our part to get rid of this idiot that's in the White House. Please do the world a favor. Then he's talking about, the Ukrainian war. This guy, he went to Ukraine. He was interviewed by Newsweek, and he says, he gets asked in the interview, what are you doing here in Ukraine? He says, well, I came here and my first plan was to fight. He wanted to join the war, except the Ukrainian military rejected him. And that's despite the fact that the Ukrainian military is drafting the mentally ill, mentally retarded, and the cancer patients within Ukraine. They're taking whoever they can get. But if even Ukraine is saying we don't want this guy, that should have raised some alarms, and it should have made people in our own country say, what's going on here? So people can feel free on their own to scan through the rest of these. It's not all of the tweets that are out there, but it's a good amount, and it gives people a little bit of an understanding. Oh, and one more thing, back to the article, one last thing, Dawson. Scroll down to the last two pictures there, because I think they're two good graphics that kind of show.
No, go back up right there
to
where
the graphics.
there.
Not the FEC records.
Yeah. By the way, he donated to Democrats.
Yeah, all of the donations are either to Democrats or Democrat causes through Act Blue. But I just found these maps to be pretty interesting and useful, showing kind of where this shooter might have been, some of the locational things where he was eventually stopped. So this is just some good information that I think people should check out, because I think that there is a lot more to uncover here, and I think that we're not going to be given the full answers off the bat.
Well, don't you feel better though? I was just gonna say, don't you feel better?
DeSantis is going to do his own investigation, and we'll see how that goes.
Oh, come on, Jesse.
Of course I don't trust DeSantis. I mean, come
Well,
on.
he's very motivated politically to do it this time.
Yeah, he was after Trump. Now all of a sudden he's gonna
let
gonna
it
save
go.
his life.
Let it go.
Yeah, come on. No, we'll see.
Sanctimonious. Go back to that map, the last image where it's a better picture of the golf course. So you see where Trump's at?
Yeah, and that's just a potential. That's
Right.
not guaranteed.
So what does it say? It says 400 yards. So roughly the spot that Routh is in is 400 yards. Tough shot. Not likely to do that, especially if he doesn't have a scope. But even with the scope, not likely to do it. I think Trump is putting at that moment, because I think his statement was he wished he would have been able to finish his putt. So what's happening, and this is how we came across the news that Trump didn't have this on his official schedule. Because he didn't have an official schedule, they didn't do maybe the sweeps ahead of time on the road where maybe they would have uncovered this. And so what they're doing is they're just going a hole or two ahead of Trump to kind of do their sweeps. And that's when they noticed the gun pointing out. Who was it? Razzle Dazzle. How did Secret Service miss the shots? It's just so interesting. So I'm just thinking, like, they're walking through and they're looking at the perimeter, and all of a sudden they see this like barrel through the chain link fence.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy doesn't know what the heck he's doing. He's got a barrel poking through the fence. And then all of a sudden, what do? They go, oh, I got to shoot this guy. Like, who would do that? That doesn't seem like at all the the tactic that would work, you would probably radio it in. So because you're probably not likely to hit this guy with a handgun from a distance, so you would want to make sure he can't evade you. And clearly the guy evades him. And if it wasn't for some firsthand witness account, some dude on the street noticing the vehicle he got in, they might not have been able to find him.
Yeah.
They certainly wouldn't have found him as quickly as they did. And so that's how the whole arrest ended up happening. It's just dumbfounding. There's this report, Josh Hawley. Let's go to this, Dawson. This is the A4. Josh Hawley, Senator Josh Hawley from Missouri. He published a report about the security gaps from the first. This is the news cycle we're in. From Trump's first assassination attempt less than 2 months ago. I mean, right?
Yeah, we're
Think
there.
right? So what are we going to be on? A hat trick by Election Day? And it just takes one. And they already nicked him once. Oh, I'm sorry, that's fake news. It was just glad. So anyhow, scroll down here. The report includes new information that had not been previously discussed. The lead agent responsible for the entire Butler visit, including the rally, failed a key examination during the federal law enforcement training to become a Secret Service agent. Secret Service intelligence units, teams of Secret Service agents paired with state and local law enforcement to handle reports of suspicious persons were absent from the Butler rally. And the hospital site where former President Trump received treatment after the shooting was poorly secured, and the hospital site agent could not answer basic questions about site security. That was new information that came out of the report. What it did was, it took all this information, some that would have been reported in the media, and just determined this is a basically gross incompetence. Tons of what was the term that they used here? Failures. Here we go. Whistleblower testimony reveals a compounding pattern of negligence, sloppiness, and gross incompetence from the report. Okay, what I see from this is at least they did their job and they caught this guy before he was able to fire shots, right? But it's like, once again, what the hell are they doing? Shooting the handgun? Like from some... I'm assuming it's a handgun, right? We're assuming this.
That's what I was wondering this whole time. Do you know that for a fact?
Well, I mean, no, but generally Secret Services... I mean, they have a counter assault team that...
They would also have to positively identify somebody before they start shooting.
Right.
And how do you... I have a lot of questions.
It's really bizarre, right?
We have a Rumble Grant. Failed candidate, $5, says the mystique of excellence has disappeared from the Secret Service. Heads should roll.
Well, and from some... It's been some time. Failed candidate. Walter sucks.
Oh, yeah. Right below. Earlier, he said he's still annoyed.
No, it just seems like going back to, wasn't the Obama administration where they had the prostitutes in Colombia, right? Like there's been some things about the Secret Service for about a decade that seems like this organization isn't what we used to think of it as.
Base Minnesota says deep state is so powerful it can take out a 78-year-old after multiple attempts, or it can't take out.
Yeah.
Which is true. They're probably...
Okay, well, that's the theory, is that, it seems like when they actually did kill JFK, right, that they find some patsy, and I don't know how they do it. Like they get this guy to actually carry it out, whether it's a young kid or some deranged old man. I'm not saying I totally believe this, okay? I'm not saying this is what happened, but it does make you wonder because the deep state doesn't want this guy, okay? So they find some patsy, and this person somehow gets radicalized to the point where they go and try to shoot, the President of the United States. That's one possibility. I mean, let's just be honest. Since Gerald Ford, there has never been multiple assassination attempts on a presidential candidate. That's a long freaking time. It's been since Ronald Reagan. There's even been an assassination attempt. And now there's been two. One of which a guy somehow got 8 shots off. It's insanity.
Well, there's actually more assassination attempts if you include some other things. I'd have to look back at what it is, but I think technically they say Obama had assassination attempts against him because there were crazies here and there that were easily stopped way before any kind of interaction or anything. So I guess it's more common than we think it is, but it's definitely uncommon for people to be within the line of sight of Trump and have this opportunity twice now.
Shots fired. Let's just say shots fired. Now, in this case, it seems like the shots were Secret Service. You're not shooting unless you believe the threat is immediate, right?
Right.
So twice. That's not happened since Ronald Reagan was actually shot in 81.
Right.
And that was post-election. And then Gerald Ford actually during election. Okay, so craziness, right? So it's not insane to think, hey, maybe the deep state's after this guy. When you look at they went after him business-wise, civil cases, and then all of a sudden you got all these criminal cases against Donald Trump. The sentencing's been postponed until after the election. The trials, nothing's going to be moving until after the election. So they're not going to take him out that way. He's tied, as reported by all the polls in all the swing states. I argue he's ahead of Kamala in all the swing states because for whatever reason, when Trump's on the ballot, the polls just do not match what his actual real support is on election day. They've been off by like 7 points, 2016, 2020. We actually have a lot of information on this because he's been on the ballot now 3 times. 2 times where we know what the final results were, and they were off on all of those, and it was by a margin of over 7 points. So in my regard, I think if you're being honest about the polling, he's probably ahead, and I'm guessing the people that have some knowledge know that. So they want this guy out of here. I'm not saying something controversial. The deep state doesn't want this guy. Let's go to you, Rebecca. I assume you're not going to vote for Donald Trump. The most interesting thing I saw at the Libertarian Party convention is the argument for Trump. I've heard Dave Smith talk about this. Not that I know he's not voting for Chase Oliver. He might not vote for Trump, but the argument is he's clearly disliked by the deep state. This is the thing that pulls me towards Trump. It's like, I have issues with Trump, keeping Fauci in charge. I have issues with Trump on fiscal policy and some other things. But in the end of the day, the real enemy of the people is this deep state, this global elite. And they do not like this guy to the point where I believe they would try to assassinate him.
Right.
It's like the biggest argument for him. Where do I go wrong on this?
No, I think that's right. They don't like him, but I don't think it's because he's necessarily not part of the deep state, but that he's a different arm of it. And maybe there's some internal conflict going on there. I mean, he's a billionaire from New York. You don't get to that point without knowing people. So,
and he was very connected politically for many years.
Yeah, he is. And policy-wise, I'm going to break with him on a lot of things. But the fact that he's kind of shaking up the system, I don't think is a bad thing. Mm-hmm. Now, where I would stand on whether he would get my vote or not would be that I am simply never going to vote for a major party ever again on any race, because I think the 2-party system is a foundational problem to where we have gotten now. There's not enough competition on the ballots for it not to be anything other than a tug of war back and forth. Mm-hmm. For us to be able to break that cycle, we need to have other parties that can, break because right now what we have is, well, you should vote for me because I'm not that guy. And that guy's saying, you should vote for me because I'm not that guy.
The old lesser of 2 evils.
Yeah. So we have more than 2 major players on a ballot. And then your arguments have to evolve with that. Mm-hmm. So that's one reason minor parties are going to be, or smaller parties, they will always get my support because the 2-party system is the problem.
Oh, go ahead.
One thing I'm thinking too is I'm sure you can appreciate that Trump is saying that he would put a libertarian in the cabinet. Oh, yeah. I mean, I guess Kamala says she'll put in a Republican, but I mean, that's going to be Liz Cheney. That's going to be Adam Kinzinger. Nothing that libertarians would ever want. And it might just be the Department of Education, which, that'd be all right for a libertarian to be in there. But don't you think that, most libertarians, too, are going to vote for Trump in this election? Anybody that was supporting Ron Paul in 2012, the majority of libertarians are choosing Trump over Chase Oliver. And don't you think that there's going to be more libertarian benefit because of a cabinet position and whatnot?
I think that this shows kind of a division within the party right now, that people who are considering Trump are only doing that because there wasn't a unifying force behind the Libertarian nominee. Mm-hmm. And I've met Chase Oliver. I really like him. I love what he says. I love the way he says it. I love the kind of energy he brings. His biggest challenge is going to be that he has to figure out how to be able to reach across the board in the Libertarian Party. And right now, that's not a hurdle I think anybody's going to overcome.
Mm-hmm.
North MN says, but a two-party system is better than one, which will happen in 5 years if the Democrats win.
Well, there's already one.
Yeah,
That's
I
the
mean,
thing.
there essentially is.
Yeah, that's the thing about Trump is he's actually taken over the Republican Party. This is probably my biggest criticism of him is when he gets in charge, he needs to go harder against the uniparty. Like him stumping for Kevin McCarthy. It's like Kevin McCarthy's the uniparty.
Right.
It's a problem. You can't.
The best way that he could do that is by opening the doors for the rest of us to be able to get ballot access.
Yeah.
The Democrats and the Republicans, they do unify on
big
their
time.
strength, like their efforts to keep other parties off the ballot. We saw that happen here in Minnesota. That happens in other states, whether they're a red state or a blue state. Their parties, the major parties, are working to keep other people off the ballot.
Right.
And that's why you don't see more libertarians on the ballot here in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
We can't get them on. Mm-hmm. The laws are stacked against us.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
And they got worse in the last year.
Oh, wait. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what are the policy issues you're running on? Like, why are you? I mean, U.S. Senate. That's pretty
It's kind of
high seat. You
it
know,
sounds weird
most
to
people
say
go
it
to
when you say
dog
it out
catcher
loud.
before they go to U.S. Senate.
Well, I mean, kind of. Anyways, yeah. So I am running on an anti-war platform. It's not a pacifist kind of a position, but just that, you know, these foreign wars that we keep engaging in and have for essentially my entire adult life have hurt American security, have hurt our prosperity, have just helped rack up the debt across the board. What was it? Is it still at 35 trillion or
I
has it
don't even
changed
know.
yet?
It's like,
Because
it's not even a number people can understand anymore.
well, and it's moving faster. You like look at the debt clock and you can't even visually keep up with
Right.
it because it's changing so fast.
Right.
And I say this like we should not be going overseas and engaging in military conflicts as a veteran, an Army veteran who did engage in those military conflicts.
Yeah, you were in Iraq. We were just
Yep.
talking before we started the show. Twice, 2 tours to
Right.
Iraq,
Yep.
which is insane to
Yeah.
think about.
Yeah. I know. Well, when you're younger, you can do.
No, I get it.
Things
No.
are a little different.
I wasn't married or had kids when I went, but it's just still like, holy crap. In fact, mine weren't. I did have a back-to-back tour. It was actually less time, but it was Kosovo than Iraq, so it wasn't
Okay.
Iraq.
I had orders to go to Kosovo
Did you
when
really?
9/11 happened. Yeah, I did. And then those all got scratched. And honestly, most people don't even remember about Kosovo anymore.
Well, it's interesting because now it's actually an interesting story because of Russia being the big enemy, and that was right in the heart of it. I mean, Ukrainians were on our base. I couldn't stand them because they went and worked out in our gym, and their hygiene standards are different than ours, just put it that way. So they stunk up the gym, but they love lifting weights, so we had that in common. But I gotta be honest, I kind of thought they were NATO because they were on the base. It was a NATO mission, you know. And meanwhile, what is Kosovo? It was a NATO-aligned new country that declared its own independence from Serbia, which was backed by
Yeah.
Russia. I mean, I still remember going on this patrol, seeing a billboard that had Vladimir Putin on it in Serbia. Well, I guess it would have been Kosovo, but it was all Serbia prior to the independence.
Right.
So yeah, that's interesting. It's back in, you know, when we were talking about when we were in, it was Iraq and Afghanistan was the big show, but now it's kind of cool that I had done that tour because I got that perspective too.
Yep.
So that is a neat perspective. In fact, I feel like a lot of us have that perspective because of the dumb stuff we saw overseas, right?
Well, and like, I mean, if it was just stupid, I wouldn't be sitting here.
Right.
Like the level of futility and the tragedies and like for my brigade, we had, so I was 2nd Infantry Division. In 2004, we deployed out of South Korea up by the DMZ. And the Army hasn't done this twice for good reason. But we deployed from one hardship tour straight to Iraq. And it wasn't like we were just going to Iraq. Like we went to Al Anbar province in Iraq, the Sunni Triangle.
Mm-hmm.
And there was Ar-Ramadi and Habaniya and Al-Taqaddum, and Fallujah was part of that. So when the Battle of Fallujah happened, that there was Marines there too. I think it was 1st Marne Div is who we were attached to during our first 6 months there, because they only do 6-month tours. And so it was 1st Marne Div. No, wait, 2nd Marne Div. I can't remember. Anyways, it was one group of Marines the first 6 months, and 2nd Marines the second 6 months. And but the Battle of Fallujah happened. Our aid station, our brigade.
You were a medic.
Yeah.
So
So I was
you're
in the
an
aid station.
Yep.
But I was also doing, we were helping support infantry battalions, the engineers, the artillery. So we had tracked vehicles, the M113s, and ours were set up as ambulances. And so we were going out on missions with the other battalions to support the casualty collection points. We usually had the dock, or the actual dock. They kind of called us all docks. But anyways, the real dock was in the tracked vehicle with us, so that when something happened, you know, we had multiple medics that could respond to whatever it was.
Are you saying like you actually had a physician with you guys?
No, the Army doesn't typically use a lot of physicians, but physician assistants.
When you so a doc, that's what you mean by doc? Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Well,
Listen, I'm learning something. I was an infantry guy. I wasn't.
They called us all docs. So like if you're a medic and you're out
I
on the
get
line
that
there,
part,
but we had doc.
That's our brain power. Is we just all called you doc. Or medic.
Right. Yeah. And our brigade, by the time our first deployment was over, we had the heaviest amount of casualties for a 12-month time period, and we maintained that record for the entire 20 years in both theaters.
So do you think that's what opened your eyes to this problem?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah.
That's
we were when you're talking about like casualties and, you know, like injuries, or, you know, in the KIAs that were coming you know, back into the aid station, those weren't just people, those were our friends. Like we knew them.
Yeah.
And there were so many times where it was like, hey, you know, and eventually it all kind of just starts mushing together. I don't know how to explain it, but you know, you get in this kind of like space where for your own mental sanity, I don't know, you're just kind of just trying to get through your days. But those were each other that we were losing. And nobody came back from that deployment. Okay. Nobody did. And we're still losing people from, you know,
suicides and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can only imagine the horrors of being a medic during the Battle of Fallujah. Like that's a crazy time period.
Yeah.
But you guys do so good. I tried to explain this to people. We don't have as many dead soldiers these days because of the level of care, how quickly we were able to evacuate people from the battlefield to high level care. It's insanity. So you guys do a great job. Plus we apply tourniquets much easier, and we're all trained to do it.
Well, there's a few things like we made a lot of medical I say we, it wasn't me, it was somebody else. But there was a lot of medical advances even from the first Gulf War to Iraq. And I did a report on this at one point in time. So I actually know the statistics. But first Gulf War, 1 out of 2 casualties were still, you know, dying. During the first, for Iraq and Afghanistan, it was only 1 in 13. We were getting people off the battlefield back into the rear, and so fast with catastrophic injuries that people were able to live through those. Now, whether it's the best thing or not, that's a whole different conversation.
Well, and the other thing, sorry to make this show about our time, but you know, there's many reasons that the United States military is the best, and it's not because we spend more money than the next 20 some countries combined. It's really because, well, I'd say 2 big reasons. One is medical, but one is also we train junior leaders to make key decisions on the battleground. I literally was stationed with the French at one point overseas, and it was amazing the incompetence of the French and how they go about operations. Like everything goes up the chain. A brigade commander's making decisions. I'm like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, well, the NCO Corps in the United States is unique worldwide.
Yeah.
Most other militaries don't have an NCO Corps.
Yeah, in fact, the NCOs versus officers, it's so much more blend. I mean, there's still separation, but it's like the a lot of this separation comes back from the old British roots we have. It's disappeared a lot more than like every other military out there. So yeah, NCOs are making key decisions on the battleground that we just
and on the
have.
spot.
Right.
Like it's not even by the time that somebody with higher authority finds out, it's already finished.
Well, the other thing that was so key about our time in Iraq was everyone was trained. Everyone was trained as a combat lifesaver.
Yep.
Like to the point where I am still very comfortable. I've never been a medic. No medical degree. Nothing like that. I'm very comfortable stopping bleeding. Very comfortable. In fact, I still have. I carry 2 tourniquets because 2 is 1 and 1 is none. Right? I carry that.
Absolutely is,
That's
yeah.
always in my vehicle, or when I go in the backcountry. Israeli bandages. I've got quick clots because I'm very comfortable. Just stopping bleedings. So, so everyone's trained, and therefore, before they even get to experts like you, they've at least addressed bleeding so people aren't bleeding out on the battlefield.
Right. Everybody carried a little pack on their flak vest with the tourniquet, the Israeli dressings, the quick clot, the things that would help the fastest.
Right.
Everybody had those on them.
By the way, I think I still would be able to stick someone. I was pretty good at, Do you trust me? Would you let me
Sure.
stick you?
I mean, I was a medic, and I actually have really awesome veins, so that made me a great candidate for sitting down and letting somebody practice on me.
You always with the one getting stuck. Okay, so the war machine. Let me ask you this question. By the way, it seems to be the position that your opponent on the right, Royce White, has. Klobuchar can't pretend like she's anti-war.
No.
She's all in on Ukraine. There's that infamous picture of her. Do I have this right? With John McCain and
Lindsey Graham.
Lindsey Graham. That was in Ukraine, wasn't it? I mean,
in Ukraine,
it was many years ago, but but it seems like I don't know if. So, what are your views on the Israel conflict? Let me ask you that, because it seems like that one, the right and left, seem to be somewhat unified on.
I would say that us funding Israel and sending them the munitions, the money, the bombs, whatever it is that they need, and then also sending support and, to help the people in Gaza because they've been injured and hurt by the supplies that we've given Israel just doesn't make any sense. If we pulled out of that completely and told Israel, this is your guys' war, you're on your own, you've got to come up with your own money, we're not supplying you anything, most of that would stop overnight.
Plus, all the Jews have the money,
Yeah.
right, Dawson? I don't get it. Why do we have to?
I don't get
money?
why that is such a hard position for people to have. I'm like, that's the most common sense.
Right.
You're a bad Jew, then, I guess.
Yeah, apparently.
You don't go to synagogue enough. I mean,
Well,
I don't know why
so
you're not wealthy.
if Joe Frazier had won the GOP primary, obviously there would be more room for differentiation between you and the Republican candidate, especially on war. I guess, with your firsthand experience, you still have differentiation between your position and Royce's. I guess my question is, what would be the case for you to make for someone like me or people in our audience that went to GOP conventions, that endorsed Royce White, that voted for him in the primary? So there's people who have voted for him a couple of times now. What's the case that you could make to Royce White supporters on why they should abandon him at the general election and vote for you?
Well, we are going to have a lot of overlap with the war stuff. That's not going to be where our differences are. The differences are going to be that, like I said earlier, there is not anything that anybody could do at this point in time to convince me that the two-party system is not the problem. And so that by playing along, and I've been approached, so many people this campaign season or whatever said, what, if you were just running as a Republican, you could actually get into these seats and you could change these policies. Like that, to me, that's not the major goal, because by complying with the system, I am also conforming to it. And the system, to keep people off the ballot and to keep people from being able to have options that breaks this two-party stronghold, that's my goal. So I am always going to be anti-war because my experiences, like the losses and that I experienced firsthand from Iraq and the people, that their blood sacrifice is never going to allow me to conform to a system that would perpetuate that. Never. I'm just, it's not going to happen.
Well, I guess the way I look at it is, I mean, I think that's a very noble position you have. I'm trying to figure out the right way to put this. It's just that you're going to put all this time and energy into a party that doesn't seem to have much chance or much success. And so there seems to be a competing idea here that has a lot of credibility, that you take the ideals you have, even if it is the idea of having more competition, but you go to a party. Obviously, I don't think you'd find home in the Liberal or the Democrat Party, so it'd be the Republican Party, and use that as a way to get into a position of power so you can, do good. So you could basically open up the competition of the party system or stop the funding for wars. Because I feel
so
like
you
that's
think
the
it's
problem with
futile
libertarians.
to try to take over the GOP then?
Yes, I do. I think that the GOP has lost. The saving of this country is not going to happen at the hands of a Republican. It's not. They have compromised. They have been corrupted. That everything that they stand for, even as let's just say, if I were able to get into a position and I were to run as a Republican, my time in that position is short. There is an entire group of people also running as Republicans. So it's not just relying on one person. Somebody is going to come after me, right? That doesn't mean that whoever comes after me is also going to hold the same ideals and the same things that I do. Even if I never get into a political seat, that by attacking the system from the outside and trying to dismantle it, not to dismantle it to make it so that there's nothing, but to rebuild it in a better way. That's every generation's curse that we all have the responsibility to do. The only reason that we are at the position that we are at currently is because the generations prior to us were weak and there was no accountability. They had the opportunity to hold strong and to keep it all together, and they failed. And that's why we have lost so much ground as we did today. And I am not going to play that game. I'm not going to also be that person that's just props it up, because someday then I'm going to have to pass on those same problems to my own children.
Well, once again, I think it's a noble cause that you're pursuing here, but how is success determined? Is it that you actually win the seat?
That's the thing. There is no winning. That's what you kind of have to wrap your mind around. You might be able to get, a seat here and a seat here. You might be able to win those little battles, but this war is eternal. You're never going to win the war. So that's why we have to have something to pass on to the next generation so that they can pick it up and keep going with it. But they also have to realize that it's just, what's the quote? The cost of liberty is eternal vigilance.
Yeah.
This isn't something that we can win. We just have to hold strong and hold our ground where we're at and not lose any, and when at this point we have to take back what we've already lost.
Well, I agree with what you're saying there, but it seemed like your objective was actually just to break up the party so that there's competition. Now you're saying liberty.
Yeah. Well, liberty is the goal.
It's the ultimate
methods
goal
of being able to get there.
But your pathway to get to that goal is to break up the stronghold on the political party system.
Yeah, because the two-party system is, just take Minnesota as an example. Royce White has just as much possibility of winning the seat from Klobuchar as I do. Let's be honest.
I don't think that's true. I really don't, because Royce White, I mean, it's yet to be seen. He's certainly pissed off a lot of maybe typical Republican voters, but walks in as the Republican nominee with a block of voters. We'll just take the what's his name, the carpetbagger,
Jim Newberger.
Yep. Had 33% in the last election?
35 or so, something.
So he walks in because he's got Republican behind his name with that base. You walk in as a Libertarian candidate with 1%.
Right.
And you're going to have no money essentially to get your message out to more people. You have I mean, you're a wonderful person. I'm enjoying this conversation very much. But, I mean, we're only going to reach so many people, and many of the people that we reach are not going to be swayed to vote your way. You're not a celebrity. So it's like, I think there's a much higher chance that Royce White can win, even though I think his chance is very limited, just because Amy Klobuchar actually gets switched voters. It's crazy. She's a far leftist, but
by having a presence in this election and being able to speak on this differently, I shift the narrative.
But but you say speak it. So, and I appreciate coming on the show because that's one way to do it. But they're not going to give you airtime. They're not going to invite you to the big, if they even do a big debate.
No,
they're
they
not
probably
right?
won't.
Yeah, they're not going to do it. So, I just don't see how this method. This is my problem. This is why I've never been part of the Libertarian Party, because it's like, well, I'm a small libertarian, right? Mm-hmm. You know, a right libertarian, because you can't. We can't all just be libertarians. We got to have right libertarians, left libertarians. I'm right libertarian because I actually believe life begins at conception. Crazy thought, right? It's not just a clump of cells, it's a human being. So I split with the left libertarians who don't see it that way. But it just seems like there's no real path to changing the political system from a party that can't amount much strength. There's the sympathy I have because, like, it would be great. I would love to break up the Republican Party because they're awful, the people that are leading it. But it seems like the better route is to work inside the Republican Party, because I think right now, when you look at the state central, which is like 300 of the interior delegates of the MN GOP, there's about a third of them that are actually patriots, that are like trying to change the system, that are anti-rhino. I mean, David Hand's got a thorn inside, and it's not just like 10 people. It's like probably 100 in the inner workings of the MN GOP. Mm-hmm. And who's to say that doesn't become 200 people and a majority with due time? And, you know, when you look at the U.S. Congress and the U.S. Senate, there's not a single libertarian that's in power. The best Republican or the best legislator, the best congressman, you know, Thomas Massey, I'm guessing we agree on that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Who works as a Republican, right, is run as a Republican. Probably the most impactful libertarian of all time was Ron Paul, who was a Republican. He did run for Libertarian Party in '88, but was a long Republican congressman from Texas. And then in the Senate, probably Rand Paul, Mike Lee. So it's like they still work inside the party. I'm not some big advocate for the Republican Party. We go after these guys all the time. We're going to get to Gazelka and how much of a fraud that guy was. It doesn't seem like that's the path to actually change the system. The Libertarian Party just seems to me to be, you know.
Well, you know, I'll tell you, I like having libertarians on the ballot sometimes too. When there's an option where I'm told, you know, I either got to vote for a Democrat or a rhino, and there's a libertarian there, I'm always going to take that option when there's a rhino on the ballot. But sometimes I too sometimes go, I'm not sure I see the purpose of a Libertarian Party on, you know, in the presidential race. I feel perfectly fine with Trump, and you know, especially you know, it just depends on the race, you know, but I think there is definitely a purpose for the Libertarian Party, and I know that, you know, you're not just running because it's Amy Klobuchar, but you're running to keep the party moving forward. And you know, we talked about it just a little bit, but Minnesota has new laws that require you guys to get 8% on the ballot to get major party status, and I think it's 1% for minor party status. Yep. So I know those are obviously targets for you to try to reach as well, but I mean, 8% is unbelievable, and it shows that there is a big problem with the duopoly here in Minnesota.
Yeah, well, see, here's the thing also. We would have more libertarians on the ballot. There would be more if the Democrats and the Republicans had not worked together to make the laws what they are today.
Right.
Because I'm also the chair of the state party. So we had to turn away people that when really push came to shove, because by Minnesota law, we have to run a statewide race every 4 years to be able to keep our party recognition. And so there's minor party status, there's major party status. And if you don't get that 1% every 4 years, then you're like a PAC, but you're not, you know, you're not considered a minor party in Minnesota. So when you are forced to put all of your resources and all of your assets to a major party race, you have to overlook the more winnable ones. That is actually keeping us from having a voice and having a seat at the table, because we did have people that we had available and were willing to run races across the state, and we had to pick. But we also were forced to prioritize the statewide races.
But see, no one believes they were going to win. So is your belief in taking this route that someday the Libertarian Party candidates will win major seats?
I do, because if there's anything that's constant, is that everything is changing. Maybe it won't this 4 years, but maybe there's somebody listening to what I have to say here and is like, you know what, I'm all on board. And from there, it just spirals.
So you're just playing, you're playing the longer game here.
Oh yeah, I know that this is a dedicated to this for lifelong. It has to be. You can't just go and turn it off just because you're tired, because like I said, my ultimate goal is that not for us. We're not going to ever get the payout for this. This isn't for us. This is for the generations that come after us,
right?
The ones that aren't old enough to be able to have a say. But decisions are being made in their names regardless. And they're going to have to live out those consequences for decisions they didn't even make. And there's a lot of really bad choices being made right now. And we're on this downward spiral, not just politically, economically, the debt, the wars across the world, essentially. There is so much going on that at a moment's notice could turn catastrophic. And so when it comes time to compromising and to being willing to work with a broken system, you're going to have to find somebody else to do that. It's not going to be me.
Yeah, and that's true. And the debt that's going to burden those future generations too by the decisions that are made today.
We have a comment from North Amen says, we don't have that kind of time. We will lose everything before that.
Yeah, but you know, it's funny. It's like maybe this will happen sooner rather than later, because I think our country's going to go through a really interesting period of time.
But they always, when you have hard, like this, we act like what we are facing today is unique to us.
Right.
It's not.
Yeah.
This has been the constant battle of humanity since the existence of people. Like there's always been the struggle of, you know, control versus people who just want to live free and be left alone. Like this has existed for thousands of years. It's just our time to be able to go through it. And regardless of what happens next, there always will be a remnant of people that live through it and have to figure out how to pick up the pieces and to move forward. And that's where we're at. Like, this is not the end of the world.
Well, you and I will be fighting that battle together, you know. I mean, maybe I don't take the Libertarian Party route, but I certainly am going to be fighting to protect our liberty.
Well, and that's the thing, too, is that I believe, I don't believe that we should reject people just because of our differences. Like, if there's something that we can agree on, particularly like the role of the government, or, you know, you're only going to be my enemy if you're like, I'm going to use the government and then it's going to be the aggressor against you. Then you're my enemy. Well,
you know, our viewpoints on the Republican Party are the same, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm sure they are.
I think they're very corrupt, and I think it is a uniparty. I would just take my time and effort into fixing a party that's already got a locked-in electorate. Well, see, I'm conflicted, and that's why I'm asking these questions, and I appreciate you indulging me here, is that if you play the long game, then it does seem to be just cut the snake's head off right now and go a separate route, because down the road, the snake's going to die anyhow.
Yeah.
And I'm still thinking, well, more near term, it's like we have a real battle for liberty right now, and the people that actually have a path to power, like Thomas Massey, right, inside the Republican ranks, or you know, Rand Paul, Mike Lee, all these kind of people, it's through the Republican ranks. But then once you're in power, you use that for good things, because a lot of us aren't playing that long game. Another way that they're stacking the deck against the third parties is the debate. So let's get into this story on ABC News, rigging the debate. It's very interesting. There is a Libertarian candidate for president. There is a Green Party candidate for president. There's other candidates for president. Nowhere in there can they participate in a debate. Just maybe there's, you know, the interesting thing about watching the debate is there's no difference on Social Security between the two candidates. There's not a big difference between Israel and the two candidates, although we never know where Kamala really stands, but they're very much, both seems to be in favor in providing funding for Israel. There's no difference between the two candidates on debt. Neither one's going to be a fiscal hawk. So it's like, there does seem to be room on some pretty major issues where another viewpoint should be welcomed on stage. There's monumental differences on economic policy and border and stuff like that, and abortion between the camps. But there are big key issues. It seems like another opinion could be allowed, but the commission never allows it. They don't want another candidate. They don't want choice between in the electorate, even though in most states, people actually do have a choice. In Minnesota, we have what? You would know this, Jesse. How many choices I'm going to have to pick for president?
Unfortunately, 9. We should only have 8.
Yeah,
because we have Dr. Shiva, who is unconstitutionally on the ballot. But, one thing I want to say on the debate points, too, because you're right that the debates have gotten more corrupt and more corporate as years have gone on in our country, because it was run by the League of Women Voters, later taken over by the Commission on Presidential Debates. Now it's just completely run by the campaigns and the media. So when we don't have a fair, neutral arbiter running these debates, it's always going to allow it to be corrupt. And in this case, it's helping out the Democrats, because the Democrats are the ones with the power because they got a campaign in it. Plus, they got the media doing their favor.
All right, let's go to this story. This is ABC News potentially rigging a debate.
Yeah.
They rigged the debate. Can we just be honest about what's going on? They didn't fact-check Kamala Harris, and she had some doozies. And they weren't even correct on the fact-checking of Trump. So go to the C1 here, Dawson. This is an alleged whistleblower. Okay, I'm not standing by this being a true story, okay? I'm just using this as something that's conversational. Elon Musk, Bill Ackman have noted this as something that needs to be addressed. ABC News has now finally responded to this and saying that's not true. Okay, I just want to bring this up because there's an interesting
got 9 million views on that tweet there, so it's obviously getting attention.
So I could tear holes in this thing, This is allegedly a male who works in tech services for ABC News, so not a reporter, not an anchor or anything like that, who noticed bias. Even if you go to the first page, just click on the first image. This person who's been redacted from this affidavit, this was a signed affidavit. This is, by the way, September 9th, so this is before the debate, which was September 10th. So the individual says in bullet point number 4, for the record, I do not endorse Donald Trump in his capacity as candidate for president of the United States. Okay, so it's not like it's allegedly somebody that's just a Trump supporter inside of ABC News. So let's go to page 3, Dawson. This is where it's interesting what's being alleged that ABC News did. The Harris campaign received particular accommodations, including but not limited to the providing of a podium significantly smaller than that used by Donald Trump, and assurance. By the way, is that rare? I don't even know if that's rare. It seems like that's probably done very frequently.
I know. I would imagine that's pretty common.
Yeah, I don't know in presidential stuff, but just general TV, that absolutely happens.
There was one little debate where Mike Bloomberg, when he was going to, running for the Democratic primary, he wanted a little box to be able to step on because he's such a short little guy.
He's a tiny
but
dude.
he was not allowed to get the box. So there is some precedent.
It is
here.
a big deal, by the way, because when you're so short, that doesn't look good,
So
right?
that's why you just take a note out of DeSantis's shoes and
Yeah, put some high heels on and get out there.
I see what you did there.
Yep.
It was agreed that Donald Trump would be subjected to fact-checking during the debate, while Kamala Harris would not face comparable scrutiny. This was widely known throughout the company that Donald Trump would be fact-checked. Okay, now hold that thought, because one of the moderators is basically admitted to that. Third point. The Harris campaign was provided with sample questions that, while not the exact questions, covered similar topics that would appear during the debate. That would be clearly against rules, right? Now,
would it matter?
I almost wonder that same thing,
Yeah,
Dawson.
of course.
It's like,
You
I
can't
think,
have one candidate given the question
right, but
beforehand
it's
and one
like,
not.
was there really a shocker in there? Like, I could have probably figured all those questions were
Right,
coming.
exactly. Inflation, right.
Abortion.
Some of them were obvious.
But by the way, ABC News has done this. Wasn't that the story in the down in Brazil, right? Mm-hmm. Right. So this has been done before. So anyhow, this was. So once again, is this affidavit correct? You could tear holes into it. It's redacted. We would want the whistleblower to come clean. It's gotten the interest of people. Finally, ABC News has denied it. Okay, they say that this is not true, or they deny that they gave. I guess they didn't say that there's no whistleblower. They just denied the allegations there. Okay. Well, here is what. Let's go to the C2, Dawson. This is Lindsay Davis, who is the one of the people fact-checking Trump. We all saw this, right? We all saw the moderators fact-check Trump, I think it was 4 times, and never Kamala Harris. And mind you, Kamala Harris had some whopping doozies that were incorrect, like he said that the white supremacists were good people. Did not happen, right? That is so...
Well, did you see that one video? There's like a video. She says something like, "We have nobody under this administration. There is nobody deployed in an active war," or something. And then there's videos of all these guys on active duty. And what are we doing here then? You know, they're taking selfies and stuff. It's like, yeah, I mean, there are tons of lies that she said in that debate.
Scroll down here, Dawson. In an interview with Los Angeles Times, Davis said she wanted to address concerns that Trump's statements could be allowed to hang there unchallenged by his opponent or the moderators as they were when Trump and Biden debate on CNN, or as they were when Trump and Biden debated on CNN in June. Quote, Davis, wearing pink glasses while speaking to the Times over breakfast at the Ritz-Carlton in Philadelphia, said the decision to attempt to correct the candidates was in response to the June 27th CNN debate between Trump and President Biden, whose poor performance led to his exit from the race. People were concerned that statements were allowed to just hang and not be disputed by the candidate Biden at the time or the moderators, Davis told the outlet on Wednesday morning. So I actually read the interview by the LA Times. This is obviously Breitbart, so they're reporting on it, where she basically said that it was decided ahead of time that they were going to do, so they actually did the research on what they thought, like statements that the candidate said, and then they inserted themselves. So she admitted that that was a concerted effort, danced around if it was done towards Trump, but we saw the execution. It was done one-sided, which, okay, can we just, I understand why someone would want them to fact-check because you don't want misinformation out there, but the idea that you're fact-checking a debate, that should be the other candidate's job, right? If you're so worried about misinformation, it's your job, Kamal, to correct that.
I would actually disagree with that. I think that if you're having a debate, I mean, I don't like how debates are anyways, because it's just, you know, say your thing, but you're going to talk about what you want, and then they get to do the same thing back and forth. But I think that fact-checking should be left up to people who, like, that's their job.
Yeah, the only problem is there's just not independent people who can be trusted, you know, especially like, you know, the abortion law in Minnesota. I mean, are we supposed to think someone from ABC has done the research and, you know, read the Minnesota law and everything?
They could do that, but it's always going to be biased one way or another. So it's
right.
Which is why they shouldn't do it, right?
They should do it after the fact. If they want to have an independent, verified person who's actually fair, that's no problem. Do it after the fact. But to do it live during the debate just shows bias.
I mean, I don't see how they do this, Dawson. I mean,
no, I think that it is good for them to try to do, like, if the one that came up again, they're eating the cats and dogs, and they said that there have been no reports. I think that's fine.
No, actually, what they said there was that the city manager says that there's no documented cases where this existed. Yep. So that was their fact checking, was literally taking a government official's word.
Yep. Awesome. I like that.
But that's insanity to say that. That's what the media's job is, supposed to scrutinize what the official narrative is, what the government officials say. If they just take what the city manager says or the president of the United States, what they say, it's like, what's your job as the media? Well, it's just propaganda at that point.
What do you want them to do? Trump says it on stage and they say, all right, let's get together a team, go over there, talk.
It's Kamala's job to deny it. I agree the spirit of this, but there's no way this could be executed well because they're going to insert their own bias. No, and in this case, they clearly got it wrong on the abortion issue.
I think it would be really bad to have the politicians themselves fact-checking because then you're just going to get them saying, actually, that's not true. I have the best thing for this, and they're going to twist it however they want it to be. It should be some independent third party, whatever.
So I would think that it's actually our responsibility as individuals to fact check them. It's somebody shouldn't be telling us because then we got to fact check the fact checkers. So that's what it comes. Yeah. Like, and what.
But most people aren't going to do it, and that's why they do this, right? This is why the ABC News debate was rigged. Because they know people are too late, not us, but the casual viewers too lazy to do it. So now I'm going to fact correct it because I look like I'm from a position of authority and unbiased here. I have no bias. And Trump is wrong, and I'm going to fact check him 4 times. And by the way, crickets when it came to Kamala Harris.
Well,
so you're
this
right.
is- yeah,
They
the
should do it,
basis-
but they know they're not going to.
The basis of the propaganda machine. That's what this
Exactly.
is.
That's my point. Is like they took the city manager's word as why that story was incorrect. Well, that is propaganda.
Rebecca, do you think they're eating the dogs and cats?
Yeah. What is your view on that?
I don't know, but I mean, I've lived in countries where they have. So I mean,
It's not a
could be.
stretch, is it?
I don't. Yeah, I
It's not a
don't.
stretch.
I mean, I don't think it's unreasonable to, but those grocery prices. Am I right? So,
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy. It's been like a week and a half, and I still haven't seen a single piece of proof. I'm
No,
still waiting.
there has been evidence. You just don't want to
No,
accept
I said
that evidence there,
proof.
Dawson.
I said proof, not evidence.
Well, it takes a while to prove it, and I didn't see the fact checkers prove anything either, by the way.
That's true. I'm still waiting. No.
Because the fact checkers proof was the city manager said it, because he's never lying. The city manager is always correct and always giving good information.
Well, it sounds like he's still correct because no proof has come out, but soon I'm sure it'll come out.
The lack of proof means
being
he's
buried.
correct. That's how it works in Dawson's world. By the way, I have no idea if the story's true or not.
Imagine that there has to be proof for me to believe something that's crazy.
Well, yes, in the end, we all have to for us to believe it, we want to see proof. I agree with you on that, but it doesn't mean that you insert your own viewpoint as a moderator, supposed to be the neutral party, the referee, when you're just quoting a city manager, a government official. It's insanity to me. But it's even beyond that. It's like, this is the problem. Maybe the spirit of fact-checking is good, but there's just no way. It's clear they can't do it right because they did it only one way in that debate, and therefore it's rigged. And it seems like Lindsay's even admitting that they were going into this fact-checking Trump.
Now I'm
Dawson, did you see the comments?
No, I haven't been looking.
It says, Dawson, please turn your mic up. Another person, Scuba McSalty, says he's too busy deep state throating the banana to worry about audio quality.
Good. My bait worked. I
So
got him to
apparently
call
your
up the
mic is
banana.
quiet.
Here, let me see.
It's not the mic. He's just soft.
So my question, Jake, last week you were saying that Trump actually won the debate, but now was it, like, did he lose and it was rigged,
I
or
don't
what?
believe I necessarily said
didn't.
Trump won the
That
debate.
was the
I
first
didn't.
thing you said, yeah.
I don't think there was a necessarily a clear winner. Everyone was saying, she won the debate. I'm like, I don't think anyone necessarily won the debate. What happened
at the
was
beginning of the show, you said that he won the debate, and Jesse agreed.
Yeah, I definitely. Well, I mean, I'll make the point that he won the debate because, yeah, I mean, I think the American people can see through when it's 3 against 1, and he got his points out there, didn't really stumble. So, yeah, I mean, people were expecting. They always say he's going to go out there and be a maniac. It never happened. So, yeah, I think he looked calm, collected. Yeah, I'd say he won. What's the point, Dawson?
I don't.
Well,
I
that he
don't.
lost is my point.
I feel like you're putting me in a position. I mean, I could be
Okay.
wrong, but I don't think I said that. I think my point was I was pushing back on everyone saying that he lost the debate. So it doesn't mean the opposite's true. It could have been just a tie. In fact, what I was saying is I don't think it moved a bunch of people. Because really, there's like 5% that's undecided in this race, right? It's not a lot of people. So
Yeah,
of
it's
that
mainly
5%,
about turnout. It's not
Right.
about flipping undecided people. It's about getting your people to turn out.
Well,
and
that's
vote.
the thing is it's the undecideds. Like, who won the debate? Did the undecideds? That's really the impression that was left in that debate. It's what they thought, and I just don't. I don't buy this fact that she did a good job. She was trainable, no doubt about it. I was pleasantly surprised how well, and she did bait him into answering the wrong way on a question. But that was overblown. It's like he kept bringing up the border over and over again. So maybe he didn't
That's the thing.
answer directly
she
on that.
memorized lines. I don't know if that's winning a debate. She memorized
yes,
lines.
because
she got
what
them out.
This is the thing.
That's what every politician
What is the
does.
debate victory? One is you don't make a blunder and you cause your opponent to make a blunder that you can use over and over again in campaigns and commercials, right? So that's one. Neither candidate did that, in my opinion.
No, that's not true. When Trump said, "What about 7 months, 8 months, 9 months?"
Yeah, that's right. Right, but of course, who's going to promote that issue, right? And by the way, Trump should be like, oh my God, look at this. We got him on abortion. The second one is that you leave a certain impression with the people that need to still have their mind made up, or I leave an impression where you don't lose your supporters. And to that, I think Trump's just as even, if not better, than Kamala possibly on that one. So this whole idea that she won the debate is just another propaganda by The city manager of Springfield, Missouri, or Springfield, Ohio.
I guess it's propaganda from me because I am still.
That's right. You just took the city manager's viewpoint.
Oh,
Yeah,
speaking
you took the bait.
yeah, you took the bait. Speaking of other propaganda, let's talk about this. Gazelka, former Senate Majority Leader Paul Gazelka, Rhino, if I've ever seen one, is apparently coming out with a book, the tell-all on the lack of leadership of Tim Walz, which is true. Tim Walz is a terrible leader, but he tweets out as a former Minnesota Senate leader. Go pull this up, Dustin, D1.
That's a terrible cover. Oh, man, I hate that.
Yeah,
That's so funny.
As a former Minnesota Senate leader, I had unparalleled vantage point on Governor Tim Walz's leadership failures. Because you were with him on a lot of those, by the way, Paul. I recorded that firsthand account in my new book, Behind the Veil, A Stand Against Governor Tim Walz. See book below.
Wow.
So you can click on this book on Twitter. Jesse, you think how many people are actually going to read this book? You think?
Yeah, I said less than 1,000. You know, there's no way that there's like all these people looking to buy this book and read it. And yeah, I mean, it's going to be filled with a bunch of exaggerations and lies if he's going to try to pretend like he was a fighter against Tim Walz. Because I mean, during the end of session, he'd always come into those negotiating rooms with Walz and come out with a big smile. And, you know, so he never took the fight to Tim Walz. This is all, this is a propaganda book that I don't think anybody is going to buy.
Well, apparently it's on Amazon, #1 new release in religious leadership.
What?
What is that?
This has kind of always surprised me about Paul Gazelka is because we have a Christian radio station up north, and they had him on, like kind of touting him as being like this Christian leader, but it was during all the COVID lockdowns and all of those kinds of things where he was just a complete and utter failure.
Right.
So
Yeah.
why would you hold him up as the shining example when he's done
And he's
nothing
funded Planned
good?
Parenthood. You know, he's voted to fund Planned Parenthood, and that was
Yeah, his bills, omnibus
right.
bills.
You know, one of the HHS omnibus bills. So he claims to be pro-life, but then he votes with it.
So I also have questions about like how did he know that Waltz was going to run for vice president?
That's what I was just wondering. I was like,
Yeah,
how
how
long did it
quickly
take
did
to
he
write
put
this
this
book, and
together?
when did he start?
No, apparently I saw this somewhere. He was writing a book and then probably pivoted because, well, I mean, in fairness to him, it's the same thing with Action for Liberty's booth at the state fair. It's like, oh, wait a second, Walz got into the race. Maybe the headline should be Never Walz, right, instead of what it was going to be before then. So it is interesting when you could just completely change a book. And then, of course, there's a million pictures of him and Tim Walz. By the way, why don't you show those pictures of you guys smiling and having a good time there, Paul Gazelka? There's lots of pictures of you and Tim Walz getting along just fine. I think he probably was eating his lemon bars. Oh, wait a second. Was Gazelka out of the... No, yeah, Gazelka would have been in the office.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were you eating the lemon bars when he came by? So this is as the Minnesota Senate Majority Leader, Paul Gazelka had an unparalleled vantage point on Governor Tim Walz's leadership failures. And Behind the Veil, Gazelka exposes the critical missteps of Walz's tenure, from the faltering response to the COVID-19 pandemic and the chaotic handling of the George Floyd riots to the troubled management of the state budget. This compelling political memoir offers a candid look at Gazelka's daily struggles with Walz's leadership and sheds light on the broader implications for our political landscape. Gazelka's insights extend beyond critique to a powerful call for a leadership style that champions respect, empathy, and dedication to the common good. As Walz steps onto the national stage, Gazelka's firsthand account serves as a crucial reminder of his leadership deficiencies. Behind the Veil not only critiques past failures, but also advocates for a future where leadership is defined by strength, clarity, and genuine commitment. It's so interesting. Strength is in that. No one thinks that guy's a strong dude. So the real record of Paul Gazelka, do you know how much money Action for Liberty had to spend forcing Gazelka to actually stand up to Tim Walz? I mean, it was hundreds of thousands of dollars. Phone call campaigns, emails, lit, all that kind of stuff, because the Republicans were compromising and allowed Governor Walz to get away with everything. They never fired Jan Malcolm. Jan Malcolm, did you know this? Okay, so Paul Gazelka, by the way, they never confirmed the secretary, what do you call it? Secretary of Department of Health. Department of Health secretary. No, we don't call them secretaries. Why am I having a brain fart
it's
here?
not.
Is it? It's not a secretary.
I don't think it's secretary.
Whatever it is, the Department of Health chair, okay, in Minnesota, Jan Malcolm. That's who it was. Commissioner. There you go. Comrade. We'll call it Comrade under Tim
Yeah.
Walz's leadership. He likes that better. So the commissioner of the Department of Health, Jan Malcolm, the person that instituted government policies during COVID, was never confirmed by Paul Gazelka's Senate. She is the one that went after our small business owners. Lara Vida, Jane Moss, Lisa Zarza,
Lisa Hansen.
Although technically Lisa Hansen's case ended up in the city jurisdiction and then ended up putting her in jail for 60 days. Paul Gazelka put her in jail for 60 days. Jan Malcolm, so basically Keith Ellison as Attorney General representing the Department of Health, went after these businesses. They took away their business license. They pretty much destroyed lives, although Lisa Zarza is now in Wisconsin and doing just fine. Thank God, right? Real patriot Lisa is. Okay? Mm-hmm. This is Jan Malcolm's track record during COVID. Paul Gazelka never confirmed her, which means at any point the Senate under his leadership could have fired Jan Malcolm. And they never did it. In fact, these con artists like Jim Abler even stood in front of a crowd of people at the Capitol, my friend Mark Bashofsky's massive crowds of people wanting to stop the mandates. He said, we will fire Jan Malcolm, and they never did it under Paul Gazelka. This guy is no leader. What are you talking about? We spent hundreds you guys didn't even get rid of his emergency powers. They funded his whole budget. It wasn't until the end of the budget, even the Democrats at the 11th hour pulled another trick on Paul Gazelka because he's an idiot, and he was the worst negotiator ever. And finally, he was forced to say, you got to sign the end of your emergency powers, Tim Walz, in I think it was July of 2021, or it was the end of July is when it officially went into effect. That's Paul Gazelka's record. And this guy's writing a book about it
Let's
now.
look at Gazelka's own words that he used about Walz when Walz gave the 2019 State of the State address, where Gazelka says, quote, I thought it was a good message, mostly reaching out and saying, what are the things that we can do together? It was positive. It painted a vision. We focused on education. We focused on transportation. We want to fix healthcare. So the issues that he's talking about, we care about as well. Tone matters, and Walz's speech carried a theme of values and civility. We're not going to get in petty arguments with one another. We're not going to send out mean tweets. The governor is reaching out to us and saying, let's build Minnesota together. We will respond to that, and we will respond positively and say, we can do this. That's Gazelka. That's Gazelka's relationship with Walz, not what he's trying to portray in that book.
And then you wonder why, I don't know, Republicans can't raise money, and no one really trusts them when they're in power. It's because of guys like this.
I bet this book is setting him up for another race. I bet that's what he's doing.
Nobody. He was the last place.
Yeah.
He was second to last place. He wasn't last place because Michelle Benson dropped out even before the convention. He lost to Neil Shaw, my good friend Neil Shaw, who never been involved in politics, beat Gazelka. Like Gazelka was last place at the state convention, GOP state convention for governor. And then I think he went on stage, if I remember this right, and said, clearly it's not the time for experience and someone that's been in politics for a while. It's like a newcomer's time frame.
Well, that's the problem. Completely tone deaf. Completely
it's just tone deaf. Yes. And by the way, not that I was some big friend of Scott Jensen. We gave Jensen a lot of heat because in May of 2020 we couldn't even get a senator. Remember, the Senate is run by Republicans. They had a 3-person majority. We couldn't get a vote to stop Walz's emergency powers. And we walked through how to do it with Scott Jensen, and he refused to do it. And when Jensen was on the campaign trail, he said the reason he didn't do it is because Paul Gazelka wouldn't let us do it. And so Paul Gazelka stopped in May of 2020 from a vote of the Senate, which should have passed the Senate because it was Republican-led, and that would have ended Walz's emergency powers. Now, it still would have faced a lot of scrutiny in the House, but the House had already voted on it. And by that point, all Republicans were on board with it. In fact, there was even 2 Democrats in the House that did it. So it's so ridiculous. But anyhow, there's also a tweet about Paul Gazelka who was criticizing someone who took their time in the legislature to make money. I should have had that ready to go, and seems like that's what he's doing now. But we know the real record, Paul Gazelka. I never thought I'd have to talk about Paul Gazelka again, to be honest with you. He's a has-been. But this guy wants to be relevant, so let's talk about the real record.
He
By the
must
way,
still be involved. Remember at the Trump rally? He was like in the little sectioned off spot behind Trump.
Oh right, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't.
He was in a
100%
limo
if
with
it was
Trump.
him, but yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he has met Trump before, and yeah, he's obviously trying to stay relevant,
Right,
stay
he's
in
definitely trying to stay
stay in the
involved.
circle.
All right. Well, listen. In fairness, Gazelka can come on the show anytime, and we can discuss the merits of his book. So here's a seat right over there for you, Paul Gazelka. It'll be a fun time. Let me know if you want to do it. All right. We better in there and go to the post show. If you are a subscriber, we'll be. Are you gonna stick around for the post show?
Sure.
All right. We'll have our Libertarian kit. Now she can really unleash on things, right? In the post show, she can give all the juicy gossip, all the skeletons in the Republican and Democrat Uniparty. So we'll be here on the post show. If you're not a member, if not a subscriber, this really helps our show. You can go to Rumble and click on join and subscribe, $8 a month. We also couldn't do this with our great sponsors, Alpine Cabinetry in St. Cloud, Minnesota, Warren Wessel of Keller Williams Realty, and John Galt Mortgage Company. If you're buying a home, give them a chance at financing that home package. Bridget, Mega Jesse, Dawson, thank you again. Once a great show, guys. Great prep. Thank you guys to all the people in the comment. We had a failed candidate with the Rumble rant today. We must not have brought our A game. One Rumble rant. Oh, what's going on? No, we appreciate everyone that's supporting the show, keeping us on live on air, and we'll be back again Thursday. And this is gonna be fun. We're gonna have Nathan Hansen, who's running for judge. The U.S. No, I keep saying Supreme Court. He's not running for the Supreme Court. He's running for district court. So. Anyhow, on the back of your ballot, there's like a gazillion judge seats, and we usually don't even see someone running against anyone. Now you got a competitive race, a guy that might think like you and me running for judge. Wouldn't that be nice to know about him? So he'll be on set to talk about that here on Thursday. We'll see you then.